Storm Connections, it's finally official, guys. This announcement has garnered some mixed to negative reactions. I know a lot of people are disappointed because they were expecting something new, but from what we saw from the trailer, it's kind of hard not to see it as what's basically just a glorified remaster of Storm 4. At least that's what everyone's reaction seems to be. What about my opinion? What does my egotistical ass have to say about this announcement? Well, for the most part, I'm actually pretty interested. I'm gonna first talk about the stuff that made me happy about the trailer. For one, I like the fact that the game is coming out for the PS5 and seems to be running at 60 frames per second. And if we are purely basing it off of the render resolution of the video uploaded on YouTube, it also seems like the game will be outputted at 4K, which to me is a blessing. I've been meaning to play Storm on my PS5 for a long time. I have the Storm Legacy on PC and I can play practically all of them at 4K, although they do have some weird frame pacing problems depending on which settings you enable and disable. And for as much as I enjoy games on PC, I do find it a bit more convenient to do it on a console, especially when all I want to do is just boot Storm to play with friends for an hour, and the last thing I want is to worry about annoying PC troubleshooting or potentially having to deal with my controllers not being properly mapped due to some bug with the Steam controller setup. With my PS5, it is literally the easiest and most comfortable experience I have playing most of my games, and being able to play Storm on my 4K monitor with the frame rate that it deserves, big W for me. The second thing that makes me happy, this isn't really in relation to the trailer, but I do appreciate the fact that they confirmed that they will be adding a new exclusive story. One of the things I was worried about with this game was the fact that they would take a generations approach, and instead of including their more ambitious streamlined story modes, it would just be a watered down and almost filler-ish story mode that didn't provide much of value. However, they are taking a different approach, though admittedly not one that I would have wanted. Basically what they're doing is essentially compiling key moments, not from the anime series, but from the actual games, as in taking existing boss battles and recreating a cut down story mode that cherry picks what they would consider the most important boss battles. Not exactly the ideal scenario for me. I would have preferred if they just designed a new story mode, because what they're offering to me right now is essentially an opportunity for me to get the same experience I would have by just simply booting up the PC port of the Storm Legacy, revisit my favorite boss battles at 4K and 60 frames per second, and selling that as a new story mode. There are some things they can do to make the experience more unique. For example, with the part 1 section, aside from, well, actually including a story, they could definitely revamp those boss battles because they do not stack up to their best works, and maybe they could fix some of the issues with the quick time events being faster than usual at 60 frames per second, which is mostly a PC problem. They can also recreate some of the cutscenes from Storm 4, or ideally just recreate the whole story mode, but with better cutscenes compared to the anime still frames and the half-assed pre-rendered cutscenes from Storm 4. If they do that, it could be pretty groovy, but would it be enough to justify releasing a new game with a new story mode? Honestly, not really. But if they're adding a new story, whatever it might be, that does at least give us something that isn't just recycled content from previous games. Something else that kind of makes me believe they might release more content is the fact that they're branding it as Naruto to Boruto. Now, notice how the majority of the content that was shared in the trailer revolved around original Naruto. Now, Bandai Namco has changed their approach to game releases in recent years. This isn't like the old days when it was common practice to release a new game in a series every year or every 2 years. Now they tend to sit on it and release additional content over time, taking on a more live service approach. We can see this with the Dragon Ball games, for example, including one of them that is produced by CyberConnect 2, namely Kakarot, in which they release game passes with each of them having brand new stories to adapt. Now, assuming that they're going to take a similar approach with Storm Connections, I do believe they would do that with Boruto, which also means that this probably will be the last Storm game, at least in quite some time, but they will likely provide long-term support and very likely longer than any of the previous games. Now, I won't exactly say that this is an approach that appeals to me personally because I'm a little bit of a traditionalist when it comes to video games. I like purchasing something and getting the full package once without having to pay for additional DLC, But if this does provide a sustainable platform for them to expand on the game with newer content over the years, then it's not all bad. I think in the end it will make the game better, at least as long as they don't neglect the story mode, because to me, that's what matters the most about Storm. And I also want for the base game to at least have something, because I do think it's bullshit to sell a game off of the idea that more content will come. That's some Kickstarter ass scamming bullshit that I do not approve of, and the game has to stand on its own first before we can invest in future content, meaning that whatever they do have now needs to be good. Now, as far as the stuff that I'm concerned about, there are a few. Probably the biggest red flag in the trailer is the fact that 99% of what we saw in the trailer are basically just stuff from the previous games. Now, I'm not one of those people that believe that this game will just be a collection of the previous games, nor do I think this will be a remaster of Storm 4, despite some concerning hints. However, I have to say, for a new game, there's nothing new in it. For example, one of the things I've been wondering since the rumors started spreading around is whether or not they would implement a new engine. For the trailers alone, it does seem like they're using the same engine they've used in previous games, and given how Awakening still shakes up the stability of the game, this is definitely the engine that I know and love. Well, love with quotations. Also, if this was Unreal, which is what they've been using in the recent games, I'm pretty sure they would disclose that information. The other thing I wanted to know was whether or not they would revamp the movements of the rosters, and given how they're promoting the fact that they're having the largest roster in all of the Storm series, I highly doubt that they will change anything about the existing roster, because it's just way too big. It's like way too fucking big for them to revamp all of them. And while not what I would have wanted, this wouldn't necessarily bother me as much if at least they changed the fundamentals of the game. From everything we've seen in the trailer, there's really nothing to deduce. Most of it was just ultimates that we'd seen before, and they didn't mention changing the battle mechanics. Now I will say this in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean that everything will remain the same. One way you could view this would be as more of a teaser. I mean, with a lot of games, we don't actually know how they play from just the first teaser, so there's still a lot to be hopeful for. However, given how this game will be released this year, they really need to start sharing more information throughout the year, because I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't exactly be very excited to play the same game again, but with more characters. Especially because, speaking from a competitive viewpoint, I favor Kill la Kill If and Hinokami Chronicles more for its combo freedom and purposeful neutral game. Especially Hinokami Chronicles. That was honestly the game that changed the way I viewed CyberConnect 2, because they showed that they're capable of making the type of arena fighter that I would lab. Because previously I dig the Storm series, but mostly as a single player campaign and something that was really fun to play with friends offline. Not online, because that's a whole other wave of cancer, but sitting with friends in the same room, hell of a time. The Ultimate Ninja series as a whole has provided some of the funnest memories playing with friends, but competitively, I would need some changes to be made for me to be invested in it. But if I had to judge the game based on the trailer, it honestly feels like we're in the same state that we were in 2016, which is not that exciting. However, I should still make this abundantly clear. It is too early to reach any conclusions about the game's state. We haven't seen the HUD, we don't know what mechanics are getting added, removed, or tweaked. We're not really in a position to reach any conclusions. I mean, think of it like this. Remember when everyone thought that demons wouldn't be playable in Hinokami Chronicles? Not based off of any official confirmation from anyone credible, just based off of what wasn't shown in the trailers, which I think is a wrong-headed way of viewing things. We should wait until more information is out, and we're definitely not gonna know what we're getting until we're very close to its release, so we should wait until that comes in. In the meantime, I'm gonna try my best to keep an open mind, and I'm still more inclined to believe that things will change and we are going to get new content, but I will say, it is pretty hard to make that argument in the state that we're in right now, because this trailer really just shows the same thing we've been seeing for years. Anyway, I'm busy working on another video. I've been playing Gintama Rumble recently, which is Kino, and I'll make sure to talk about my experience later down the line. In the meantime, hope you have a good day.